The first time the Galactic Council officially noticed Earth, it was almost by accident. For centuries, their networks of sensors had swept across the spiral arm, charting new stars and cataloging emerging civilizations. Most young species took millennia to crawl from fire to flight, and when they finally touched the stars, they did so timidly. But Earth had a strange rhythm, one that slipped past their calculations until it was too late. The discovery came when a scout relay on the Fringe of Sol registered a faint warp signature. At first, the Council assumed it was a mistake. Humanity should not have been capable of producing such energy spikes. But when the readings repeated themselves again and again, the Council was forced to look closer. What they saw unsettled them. Earth was not empty skies and scattered villages. It was already a planet alive with satellites, orbital stations, and a constant stream of rockets launching toward the stars. Mining drones chewed through asteroids. Probes dotted the cold expanse between worlds. Small ships, primitive by Galactic standards yet surprisingly efficient, pushed steadily outward. This was no hesitant species learning to crawl. Earth was running. The Council debated how to approach. Some recommended a cautious welcome. Others insisted humanity be contained before they became troublesome. In the end, they chose a display of authority. A grand diplomatic envoy was assembled. Gleaming ships, painted in the silver and gold of the Council crest, sent to descend upon Earth in a show of elegance and power. They expected awe, perhaps even worship. What they found instead was unsettling courtesy. The envoy descended through Earth's atmosphere on a bright spring morning. Instead of panic, they were met with organized responses. Air traffic control redirected planes with efficiency. Military satellites tracked every movement, with calm precision but did not fire. When the great ships landed near Geneva, delegations of humans were already waiting. Leaders from many nations stood side by side, not as squabbling rivals, but as representatives of a united front. The Council diplomats stepped onto the stage, their ceremonial robes flowing. They expected confusion. Instead, the humans smiled, warmly, extended their hands, and spoke in fluent translated phrases. The Council had hoped to impress with advanced language algorithms, but humanity had already cracked their signals, mirrored their technology, and built translators of their own. What was meant to be a lesson in superiority became a quiet embarrassment. "Welcome to Earth," the human leader said, a woman with calm eyes and a steady voice. "We are honored by your visit. Let us sit and speak as friends." The Council members exchanged uncertain glances. Friends? They had come to claim mentorship, not equality. Yet the humans carried themselves with such composure that the Council found it difficult to press the matter. Over the following weeks, meetings stretched across continents. Humans offered trade, shared cultural knowledge, even extended invitations to their space stations. They asked thoughtful questions about the Council's history and technology, and they listened closely. Too closely. Some counselors whispered that Earth's questions were not those of innocence, but of careful strategists mapping weaknesses. The first seeds of unease were sown. To the general public across the galaxy, news broadcasts framed Earth as a quaint, new world, ambitious, energetic, but harmless. Behind closed doors, however, conversations were far less certain. Humanity had advanced too quickly, with too much coordination. Their progress suggested not luck but determination, perhaps even design. The Council began to wonder, had Earth been preparing for the stars all along, hiding their strength until the right moment? Yet outwardly, humanity remained gracious hosts. They offered art, music, and cuisine. They shook hands and smiled. They asked only for peace and partnership. And so the Council left Earth with polite words and a shadow of doubt. In their hearts, the humans already knew what those doubts meant. The galaxy did not yet trust them, and somewhere in the distance, fleets were already beginning to move. When the Council ships departed Earth's orbit, they left behind the polite smiles of diplomats and the lingering tension of unspoken judgments. On the surface, nothing seemed amiss. Humanity had been welcomed into the wider galactic family, with ceremonial exchanges and symbolic treaties. But inside the chambers of the Galactic Council, far from the view of ordinary citizens, the tone was starkly different. The ambassador's reports unsettled many senior counselors. They spoke of humans who asked sharp questions, who adapted too quickly, who carried themselves not with awe but with quiet confidence. That confidence, some feared, could become dangerous. "They have no right to advance at such a pace," hissed Counselor Ravik of the Drunari, his tendrils curling in agitation. "We nurtured civilizations for centuries before they dared set foot beyond their moons. Yet Earth pushes outward as if the stars were theirs by birthright." Other voices rose in agreement. To them, humanity's unity during the envoy's arrival was especially troubling. Most species fractured under the strain of first contact, bickering over control, resources, and recognition. Earth, by contrast, had spoken with one voice. Even if that unity was fragile, it suggested a culture far more prepared than expected. In secret, the Council debated measures of containment. Proposals emerged to restrict Earth's access to galactic trade, to limit the flow of advanced materials, to quietly reposition fleets closer to Sol under the guise of patrol routes. Officially, the Council declared humanity a developing partner species. Unofficially, they prepared to keep them under watch. Meanwhile, back on Earth, leaders were not blind to the shift in tone. Intelligence networks had intercepted fragments of alien communication, enough to piece together the Council's growing mistrust. Satellites tracked the slow but deliberate movement of foreign fleets edging toward the outer system. Humanity understood the message, yet outwardly, Earth played the role of eager newcomer. Delegates attended council gatherings, bringing gifts of art and science. They signed treaties filled with clauses designed to guide their growth, nodding politely as alien bureaucrats explained the limits of their membership. The humans never protested. They never raised their voices. They smiled, shook hands, and carried on as though nothing was amiss. Beneath that calm surface, however, a different conversation unfolded. In underground command bunkers, in orbital shipyards hidden behind the glare of the sun, and in vast research stations buried deep. Under oceans, humanity began preparing. Scientists refined prototype drives that bent space in ways the Council considered impossible. Engineers tested weapons that harnessed energy fields abandoned long ago as unstable. Generals drilled fleets not for parades but for survival. "Patience," whispered Admiral Hayes as he watched simulations of alien fleet formations flicker across a hollow screen. "We will not be the first to strike, but if they come, they will learn." Humanity's restraint was deliberate. They knew the Council expected fear and resistance. They gave them none. By acting compliant, Earth bought itself time to strengthen, to prepare, and to understand the galaxy's true balance of power. In the Council chambers, however, the miscalculation deepened. Convinced that Earth's courtesy was weakness, several counselors grew bold. They spoke openly of how humanity might one day disrupt the careful order of galactic politics. "Better to contain them now, while they are still young," argued Ravik, his voice echoed by others. So fleets continued to drift closer to Sol. Embargo lists were quietly drafted. Economic ties were designed not to support, but to limit. The Council believed they were shaping the future of an unruly child. On Earth, leaders exchanged quiet smiles as they read the reports. The Council thought of them as a child, perhaps. But children grew and children learned. Humanity had been underestimated before, by empires, by rivals, by forces that claimed dominion over them. History had shown the same truth. Again and again, Earth endured, and Earth overcame. As the year closed, the humans raised a silent toast. To peace, if peace was possible. To patience, for as long as patience lasted. And to strength, waiting, beneath the surface, unseen by those who mistook kindness for frailty. For the Council, the game of containment had begun. For humanity, the waiting game had already ended. When the Council ships departed Earth's orbit, they left behind the polite smiles of diplomats and the lingering tension of unspoken judgments. On the surface, nothing seemed amiss. Humanity had been welcomed into the wider galactic family with ceremonial exchanges and symbolic treaties. But inside the chambers of the Galactic Council, far from the view of ordinary citizens, the tone was starkly different. The ambassador's reports unsettled many senior counselors. They spoke of humans who asked sharp questions, who adapted too, quickly, who carried themselves not with awe, but with quiet confidence. That confidence, some feared, could become dangerous. "They have no right to advance at such a pace," hissed Counselor Ravik of the Drunari, his tendrils curling in agitation. "We nurtured civilizations for centuries before they dared set foot beyond their moons. Yet Earth pushes outward as if the stars were theirs by birthright." Other voices rose in agreement. To them, humanity's unity during the envoy's arrival was especially troubling. Most species fractured under the strain of first contact, bickering over control, resources, and recognition. Earth, by contrast, had spoken with one voice. Even if that unity was fragile, it suggested a culture far more prepared than expected. In secret, the Council debated measures of containment. Proposals emerged to restrict Earth's access to galactic trade, to limit the flow of advanced materials, to quietly reposition fleets closer to Sol under the guise of patrol routes. Officially, the Council declared humanity a developing partner species. Unofficially, they prepared to keep them under watch. Meanwhile, back on Earth, leaders were not blind to the shift in tone. Intelligence networks had intercepted fragments of alien communication, enough to piece together the Council's growing mistrust. Satellites tracked the slow but deliberate movement of foreign fleets edging toward the outer system. Humanity understood the message, yet outwardly, Earth played the role of eager newcomer. Delegates attended council gatherings, bringing gifts of art and science. They signed treaties filled with clauses designed to guide their growth, nodding politely as alien bureaucrats explained the limits of their membership. The humans never protested. They never raised their voices. They smiled, shook hands, and carried on as though nothing was amiss. Beneath that calm surface, however, a different conversation unfolded. In underground command bunkers, in orbital shipyards hidden behind the glare of the sun, and in vast research stations buried deep. Under oceans, humanity began preparing. Scientists refined prototype drives that bent space in ways the Council considered impossible. Engineers tested weapons that harnessed energy fields abandoned long ago as unstable. Generals drilled fleets not for parades but for survival. "Patience," whispered Admiral Hayes as he watched simulations of alien fleet formations flicker across a hollow screen. "We will not be the first to strike, but if they come, they will learn." Humanity's restraint was deliberate. They knew the Council expected fear and resistance. They gave them none. By acting compliant, Earth bought itself time to strengthen, to prepare, and to understand the galaxy's true balance of power. In the Council chambers, however, the miscalculation deepened. Convinced that Earth's courtesy was weakness, several counselors grew bold. They spoke openly of how humanity might one day disrupt the careful order of galactic politics. "Better to contain them now, while they are still young," argued Ravik, his voice echoed by others. So fleets continued to drift closer to Sol. Embargo lists were quietly drafted. Economic ties were designed not to support, but to limit. The Council believed they were shaping the future of an unruly child. On Earth, leaders exchanged quiet smiles as they read the reports. The council thought of them as a child, perhaps. But children grew and children learned. Humanity had been underestimated before, by empires, by rivals, by forces that claimed dominion over them. History had shown the same truth, again and again. Earth endured, and Earth overcame. As the year closed, the humans raised a silent toast. To peace, if peace was possible. To patience, for as long as patience lasted. And to strength, waiting, beneath the surface, unseen by those who mistook kindness for frailty. For the Council, the game of containment had begun. For humanity, the waiting game had already ended. From the outside, Earth looked as though it had accepted its new place. Human delegates arrived punctually at council gatherings, their attire carefully blending traditional culture with subtle nods to alien custom. They listened politely when counselors lectured them on responsible development and safe exploration. They signed documents limiting the size of their fleets, the range of their colonies, and even the tonnage of their orbital stations. To anyone watching from afar, it appeared that Earth was the perfect student. But appearances were deceiving. Behind every nod of agreement, humanity concealed its own path forward. The very treaties meant to limit them became useful disguises. Council inspectors counted ships in public shipyards, not realizing that the most advanced vessels were being assembled far from prying eyes, inside cavernous hangars carved into asteroids and beneath the waves of Earth's oceans. Regulations capped research on faster-than-light drives, but scientists simply renamed their projects, cloaking breakthroughs beneath layers of harmless-sounding civilian studies. Dr. Leon Chen, lead physicist at the Pacific Research Array, studied quantum resonance engines under the label of communications efficiency. Her team's papers were praised by alien academics for their elegance, never suspecting that her true prototypes could bend space-time in ways the Council had long considered impossible. Meanwhile, engineers at Luna shipyards experimented with adaptive AI to coordinate drone fleets. Officially, these drones were for asteroid mining. Unofficially, they were war machines, learning maneuvers in virtual arenas that would one day outmatch any known navy. Every smile, every handshake, every bow of humility served a purpose. Humanity was not pretending for arrogance. They were buying time. On Earth, leaders gathered in secure chambers where no council sensors could reach. The atmosphere was always the same, calm, deliberate, but edged with determination. "They believe us naive," said Chancellor Okoye, her voice steady as she scanned the reports of alien fleets drawing closer to Seoul. "They think they are guiding us, but they are placing us in a cage of their own design. Then we let them build it," replied Admiral Hayes, leaning over the table. "And when the day comes, we will show them the cage was never locked." In space, training intensified. Human fleets rehearsed maneuvers with an almost obsessive precision. Pilots pushed their bodies through punishing regimens, practicing until their reflexes blurred the line between human instinct and machine efficiency. Soldiers tested exosuits capable of withstanding environments. Even council troops avoided. Humanity prepared not for dominance, but for survival. And through it all, Earth maintained its mask. Council inspectors toured facilities and found nothing unusual. They saw smiling workers in factories producing freighters and medical shuttles. They counted modest orbital defenses and noted Earth's apparent compliance with trade restrictions. Few realized that much of humanity's true capability was hidden in plain sight, disguised as civilian progress. To ordinary citizens across the galaxy, Earth became a curiosity. Humans were energetic, adaptable, and oddly charming in their enthusiasm. Their art, their music, and even their humor spread quickly, finding fans among younger species eager for something fresh. While counselors whispered of threats, alien civilians spoke fondly of their human friends. This dual perception worked in humanity's favor. The more the Council tried to quietly contain them, the more sympathy Earth earned among the galaxy's people. Humanity did not exploit this openly, But they understood the value of being underestimated and, at times, admired. Still, patience had its limits. One evening, as the sun set over a hidden launch site in the Andes, a sleek vessel rose silently into the sky. It was not listed on any council manifest, nor would it appear in any official report. Its drive shimmered with a faint ripple of space itself, a prototype of the technology Earth had sworn not to pursue. It slipped beyond the atmosphere, cloaked from alien eyes, vanishing into the deep night. On its hull was painted a single phrase, Pax in Potentia, peace through strength. Humanity continued to smile. Humanity continued to nod. But in the quiet, spaces between worlds, their preparations grew. They would play along for as long as it suited them. And when the council pushed too far, Earth would be ready to reveal what lay beneath the mask. The council's patience began to fray. Despite treaties and restrictions, Earth's progress showed no signs of slowing. Mining colonies sprouted on asteroids, orbital stations multiplied around the moon. Even within the supposed limits of their agreements, humanity seemed to grow stronger every month. To the council, it looked like disobedience cloaked in politeness. To humanity, it was simply survival. Councillor Ravik of the Drunari finally voiced what many others had been hinting at. "A test," he said in the Grand Chamber. "Let us see how these humans truly respond to power. If they are compliant, they will bend. If they resist, we will know the danger they pose." And so, under the guise of routine exercises, a fleet of 30 council warships charted a course toward Seoul. Their stated mission was navigation training, but their true intent was clear, a demonstration of strength aimed directly at Earth. The fleet's arrival did not go unnoticed. In Houston, control screens lit with red markers as the alien armada slipped past Mars. In Geneva, delegates received hurried reports. On the moon, commanders snapped into silent readiness. But Earth's leaders did not call for panic. Instead, they chose their response carefully. "Let them come," said Chancellor Okoye during a midnight meeting in the secure chambers beneath the Alps. "We will meet them not with fear, but with discipline. They expect trembling hands. Give them steady ones." Orders rippled outward. Earth's defense fleet stirred, not with haste but with precision. Patrol ships adjusted orbits. Carriers released squadrons of interceptors. Drones, disguised as survey craft, quietly shifted into tactical formations. To any outside observer, the mobilization looked routine, almost casual. Yet every movement was coordinated, every vessel sliding into place with practiced accuracy. By the time the Council fleet approached Mars orbit, they found humanity's ships already waiting. At first glance, Earth's fleet looked small, barely. A dozen capital ships, supported by corvettes and drone wings. By galactic standards, it was modest. But as the alien commanders watched, they noticed something unsettling. The human vessels moved as if guided by a single mind. Formations held, with mathematical perfection. Escorts wove in seamless arcs, shielding larger craft. Even the smallest drones flew with uncanny unity, responding faster than most organic crews could manage. The Council fleet broadcast their intentions, cloaked in diplomatic phrasing. "This is a standard exercise," their admiral declared. "We advise your vessels to remain at a safe distance." Humanity's reply came calm and clear. "We acknowledge your exercise. We are here to ensure the safety of navigation in our system. Please proceed." Not a threat. Not a challenge. Just steady words spoken with quiet resolve. The Council admiral bristled. They had expected panic, frantic calls for permission, perhaps even retreat. Instead, humanity's fleet hovered before them like a wall of iron. Small, yes, but immovable. The alien warships maneuvered through their drills, but every time they shifted, the humans mirrored them. Not aggressively, but precisely. Wherever the Council ships went, human formations aligned, always keeping the perfect distance, always showing they had anticipated the move. It was not defiance. It was discipline. And it unsettled the Council far more than open hostility ever could. For hours, the exercise continued. Alien destroyers flared engines, executing sharp maneuvers. Human corvettes shadowed them flawlessly. Capital ships simulated weapon locks. Earth's vessels countered with defensive alignments before the simulations even finished. It became a dance of precision, and in that dance, the Council realized something unnerving. Humanity was not learning from them. Humanity was showing them how it should be done. When the fleet finally departed, no shots had been fired. Official reports described the exercise as uneventful. But in private, Council officers whispered of the humans' eerie coordination, of pilots who reacted faster than expected, of ships that seemed to predict movements before they happened. In Geneva, humanity reviewed the encounter with quiet satisfaction. "They came to test us," Admiral Hayes said with a faint smile. "And we passed, without firing a single shot." Earth's leaders knew the Council would not stop here. The test had not reassured them. It had only deepened their unease. But for humanity, that was enough. The message was clear. Earth would not be bullied, not by fleets or threats, and they could show strength without ever breaking their mask of courtesy. The Council's admirals returned from Mars orbit with their pride dented. Officially, they reported that the exercise had concluded without conflict. Unofficially, they whispered of the humans' unnerving calm, of formations too perfect for a young species, of a fleet that behaved like a single organism. To many counselors, this was confirmation of their fears. "If we allow them to continue unchecked," Counselor Ravik declared during a heated session, "Earth will soon possess the means to challenge us openly. They must be contained." The chamber buzzed with agreement. No one spoke of war. Not yet. Instead, they proposed a quieter weapon, one the Council had used many times against troublesome species: trade restrictions. It began with resource limits. Rare alloys were suddenly withheld. Supply convoys that had begun delivering advanced medical equipment slowed to a trickle. Shipping routes were reassigned, leaving Earth's freighters stranded at the edges of bureaucracy. The embargo grew by increments until it became undeniable. Humanity was being strangled. The Council believed Earth would buckle within months. They imagined empty shipyards, idle factories, and desperate leaders forced to beg for relief. What they found instead was something they had underestimated once again: human adaptability. When rare metals stopped arriving, engineers turned to the asteroid belt, harvesting iron, nickel, and platinum with a speed that startled even their own projections. When Council officials cut off biotechnological imports, human scientists pushed agricultural innovation further, building orbital greenhouses and subterranean farms that doubled yields in a season. When freighters were blocked from interstellar lanes, shipwrights on Earth and Luna expanded their own cargo fleets, charting independent routes through the black. The Council had intended to choke Earth. Instead, they had forced it to stand taller. At first, alien observers laughed at humanity's improvised solutions, mining with drones instead of full fleets, growing food in orbit, printing substitute alloys layer by layer. Inefficient, they said, primitive. But when the reports kept flowing, when Earth's colonies did not collapse, when their stations still thrived, those laughs faded into uneasy silence. Chancellor Okoye watched the embargo reports with a calm expression, though her eyes betrayed a glint of satisfaction. "They believe us trapped," she said during a meeting in the underground chambers. "But every lock they place only strengthens the walls we are building. We should thank them for forcing us to grow." Admiral Hayes leaned back in his chair, arms folded. "They think they are starving us. All they are doing is teaching us to feed ourselves." Among the general population of the galaxy, the embargo stirred sympathy. Traders spoke quietly of unfair treatment. Artists from other worlds shared human music and protested restrictions. Even citizens of council member species questioned why Earth was being punished when it had committed no act of aggression. Humanity's image, far from crumbling, became more compelling. A young race facing giants with resilience and quiet dignity. The council did not see it that way. To them, humanity's refusal to bend was defiance. If sanctions failed, harsher measures would be required. And so, discussions turned darker. Some suggested deploying fleets not for exercises but for enforcement. Others spoke of seizing orbital stations to remind Earth who truly held power. Unaware of these debates, or perhaps deliberately ignoring them, humanity pressed forward. Research stations expanded in secret. Prototypes were tested in hidden labs. Colonies beyond the Council's closest watchpoints grew, modest in appearance, but ambitious in design. Every embargoed item became an opportunity for invention, every blockade a challenge to overcome. In the quiet of night, a transport ship lifted off from Luna, carrying newly printed reactor cores, materials the Council swore humans could not possibly build on their own. Its engines flared as it vanished into the dark, proof that Earth's ingenuity was no longer bound by anyone's permission. The embargo was meant to weaken humanity. Instead, it proved a mistake. For every door the Council closed, humanity built. Two more. For every restriction imposed, Earth found another path forward. The patience that had defined their first encounters remained. But deep beneath the surface, in bunkers, shipyards, and laboratories, Earth was sharpening its hidden strength. And though humanity still smiled in public, a silent truth spread among its people. If the Council pushed again, they would find not weakness, but resolve stronger than steel. The embargo had failed. Instead of collapsing under pressure, Earth had flourished in defiance of it. Reports flowed into the Council chambers. Mining output had doubled, food surpluses were stable, and even restricted alloys appeared in human shipyards despite the blockade. To many councilors, this was not resilience. It was defiance. "This cannot continue," Councillor Ravik hissed, his tendrils curling tightly as he addressed the chamber. "We offered them guidance, and they respond with trickery. If sanctions cannot contain them, we must act with strength. Their stations, their fleets, their fragile unity, tear it down before it grows into a rival." The vote was tense, but the decision was made. A fleet would be sent, not for exercise this time, but to enforce. The plan was simple. Seize Earth's orbital stations, disable its defenses, and remind humanity that the Council's will was law. It was to be swift and decisive, a blow that would leave Earth trembling but alive. The fleet entered Sol under the veil of bureaucracy. Official statements described it as a stability patrol, protecting the system from piracy. But when 30 Council warships crossed Neptune's orbit, humanity knew the truth. They were coming. In underground command bunkers, alarms remained silent. No broadcasts warned the public. Instead, leaders and admirals gathered in calm, dimly lit rooms, speaking not of panic but of timing. "They will move first for the stations around Earth," Admiral Hayes said, tracing the predicted trajectory of the alien fleet. "Once they control orbit, they believe we will surrender." "And will we?" Chancellor Okoye asked, her voice calm. Hayes allowed himself the faintest smile. "No, we've been waiting for this." Orders rippled outward. Orbital platforms powered systems that had never been listed on any treaty manifest. Stealth satellites drifted into alignment. Drone swarms, long hidden as survey networks, began to stir. Humanity had played its part, biding its time beneath masks of courtesy. Now, for the first time, the mask would slip. The Council fleet arrived in orbit, gleaming lines of silver and gold. their admiral issued a broadcast, sharp and commanding. Earth is in violation of Council regulation. Orbital stations will be placed under our protection until compliance is assured. Power down your defenses. For a moment, silence answered. Then a voice emerged from Earth's command hub, measured, calm, but unyielding. This is Earth. Your protection is not required. Leave orbit immediately. The Council Admiral gave the order, weapons armed, ships advanced, and then the sky lit up. From the shadow of the moon, stealth platforms decloaked, their surfaces rippling as they bent starlight back into visibility. Graviton projectors, once thought impossible, snapped to life, seizing Council cruisers and wrenching them off course. Drone swarms poured from disguised bays, moving not in chaos but in terrifying unison, weaving patterns that shredded enemy formations before weapons could be properly aimed. Council ships fired, but their shots were caught in fields that bent energy sideways, dispersing beams into harmless arcs. Human corvettes darted through the confusion, striking not with brute force but with precision, disabling engines, severing weapon arrays, cutting power systems until massive alien warships floated helplessly in orbit. The battle lasted less than an hour. Not a single human ship was lost. The once proud Council fleet, symbols of galactic order, drifted silent and broken above Earth, their crews scrambling to contain fires and restore systems. Humanity had not destroyed them. They had disarmed them. Across every channel, a single broadcast was transmitted. A human voice, steady as steel, echoed through the void. We have been patient. We have been courteous. Do not mistake kindness for weakness. Leave our skies and return to your council. If you seek peace, we will welcome you. If you seek conquest, remember this day. The words rippled across the galaxy within hours. Worlds that had once dismissed Earth as a backwater now whispered in awe. The Council's fleet, the same fleet that had crushed rebellions, that had subdued entire civilizations, had been humbled without a single human casualty. On Earth, the mask of politeness slipped back into place. Humanity spoke again of peace, of partnership, of mutual respect. But now every species knew what lay beneath that calm surface. The humans had teeth, and they had just shown them. The wreckage of the Council's pride drifted in silence above Earth, a reminder carved into the void. Though the disabled ships were eventually towed away under human escort, the humiliation could not be erased. In every corner of the galaxy, news of the defeat spread faster than any sanctioned broadcast could suppress. For the first time in living memory, the Galactic Council had been defied, and not by an old power, but by a species barely considered worthy of the stars. On distant worlds, citizens gathered around holoscreens to watch shaky recordings of the battle. Grainy footage showed Council cruisers ensnared by shimmering fields, drones tearing through formations like schools of coordinated predators, and human ships maneuvering with uncanny unity. Commentators whispered in disbelief. A developing species, they said, should not have been capable of this. The Council tried to spin the narrative. Official dispatches spoke of an unfortunate misunderstanding, of human defenses exceeding expectations, of damage caused by technical malfunctions. But the story had already escaped their control. Traders spoke in hushed tones at starports. Soldiers in alien garrisons replayed battle footage on private devices. Students in academies whispered about humans who smiled even as they dismantled fleets. Fear spread first. Worlds closest to Sol worried they might be next, that Earth's sudden show of strength meant conquest. The thought of humans expanding unchecked sent shivers through governments already suspicious of their rapid growth. Yet alongside fear came something else. Admiration. Species long held under the Council's heavy hand watched with awe. To them, Earth was not a threat, but a symbol. A world that had faced the giants of the galaxy and refused to bow. Songs and poems were written in their honor. Smugglers painted human symbols on their ships, hoping to borrow some of the fear now attached to Earth's name. Inside the council chambers, chaos reigned. Some argued for immediate retaliation, a massive strike to remind the galaxy of the council's supremacy. Others warned that such a move could backfire disastrously. They showed restraint, one counselor insisted. Not a single council. Life was lost. Imagine what it would mean if we provoked them into a war they do not intend. Counselor Ravik, once so certain of humanity's weakness, was now less sure. He replayed recordings of the engagement, watching how the humans disabled ships without destroying them. It was not brutality, it was control. And that control frightened him more than raw firepower ever could. Meanwhile, humanity remained calm. Earth's diplomats attended council meetings as if nothing had happened. They offered no gloating, no threats, only their usual measured courtesy. But behind every polite phrase lingered the memory of what had happened above their skies. In Geneva, Chancellor Okoye addressed her staff. The galaxy now knows who we are. Not conquerors, not aggressors, but a people who will not kneel. That is our strength. We will not brandish it unless we must, but we will never hide it again. Admiral Hayes agreed, though his tone was grimmer. Restraint will win us allies. Fear will win us enemies. The council teeters between both. We must be careful which side they fall to. Across the stars, whispers grew louder. Some called humanity reckless. Others called them saviors. Merchants speculated that trade with Earth would soon bring fortune. Strategists in military academies revised their doctrines to account for human unpredictability. In countless corners of the galaxy, the same question was asked. What else are the humans hiding? The council could not answer. Their fleets, once unquestioned symbols of dominance, had been shown vulnerable. Their sanctions had failed. Their authority had cracked. And though humanity spoke of peace, every leader in the galaxy knew the truth. Earth now had leverage. Fear spread. Admiration spread. But above all, respect spread, earned not through conquest, but through discipline, restraint, and the simple refusal to break. For the first time in the Council's long rule, the balance of power had shifted, and it had shifted toward Earth. The Council convened in emergency session, their chamber filled with an unease that clung like a storm cloud. For centuries, their authority had been unchallenged. Now that authority had cracked, and every counselor felt the weight of it pressing down. The official agenda was worded carefully. Discussion of human integration and the preservation of stability. But beneath the phrasing lay a deeper truth. The galaxy had changed, and it was Earth that had changed it. Counselor Ravik, once the loudest voice for containment, sat in brooding silence. He had watched the footage more times than he wished to admit, trying to find weakness in the humans' display. There was none. Worse, their restraint gnawed at him. They had disabled fleets without slaughter. They had sent ships home instead of leaving wrecks behind. Such discipline spoke not of recklessness, but of mastery. Counselor Vera of the Aelari finally broke the silence. They have done what none of us expected. They endured our sanctions, they deflected our force, and they did so without striking a single death blow. This is not weakness, this is strength, guided by purpose. Murmurs rippled across the chamber. Some still demanded punishment, fearful of losing face. Others argued that humanity should be embraced before their growing influence turned sympathy into allegiance. In truth, many knew the choice was no longer theirs to dictate. While the council wrestled with indecision, Earth's delegation entered the chamber. They walked without guards, their uniforms plain, their expressions calm. Chancellor Okoye led them, her gaze steady as it swept across the assembled counselors. Representatives of the council, she began, her voice clear, we have come not as supplicants, but as equals. We desire peace, cooperation, and mutual respect. But we will not accept chains disguised as guidance, nor will we bow to threats disguised as protection. The words carried through the chamber, each syllable measured, deliberate. The humans did not shout. They did not boast. They simply stated their position with the certainty of those who had already proven it. Counselors shifted uneasily. They had expected arrogance, perhaps defiance. They had not expected dignity. Chancellor Okoye continued, "We believe in partnership. We believe in a galaxy where strength is not wielded for domination, but for balance. We have shown restraint where others would have shown destruction. Do not mistake that restraint for naivety. We were playing nice before. Let us hope we never have to stop again." Silence followed. The chamber, accustomed to endless speeches and posturing, seemed frozen. And then, slowly, Counselor Vera rose. "I move," she said, "that Earth be granted full membership in the Council, not as a ward, not as a junior, but as an equal. They have earned their place, not by conquest, but by wisdom." The vote that followed was the most divided in Council history. Yet when the final tally was cast, the result was clear. By narrow margin, Earth was admitted as a full member of the Galactic Council. The announcement rippled across the stars. On distant worlds, crowds cheered. On others, leaders stewed in fear. Some saw opportunity, others saw danger. But no one could deny the truth. Earth was no longer a curiosity. It was a power. Back on Earth, celebrations were muted. There were no parades, no triumphant speeches. Humanity had never sought domination, only recognition. In quiet rooms, leaders reflected on the long road ahead. Respect had been earned, but suspicion remained. Allies had emerged, but so had rivals. Admiral Hayes summed it best as he stood beneath the stars at Luna Base. "We've stepped onto the stage, but the play has only begun. The galaxy watches us with fear, with envy, with hope. How we act now will decide whether they remember us as tyrants or as partners worth following." Chancellor Okoye nodded, her gaze fixed on the horizon of the Earth below. "Then we act with the same patience that brought us here. But we will never again hide who we are." Above them, fleets moved quietly across the night, no longer pretending to be less than they were. The Council had learned the truth. Earth was not weak. Earth had simply chosen kindness, chosen courtesy, chosen to play nice until forced to reveal its strength. And now, with a seat at the table and the galaxy's eyes upon them, humanity was ready to shape a new order.